you've never styled a wig before. Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mildly Gothic, and if you're new here, what I like to do is a variety of artsy content. Welcome to my little chaos corner. And if you are not new, hi, thank you for clicking on another video. It's so nice to still have you here with me. And today we are doing, once again, drumroll, Beetlejuice. So I'm continuing all of my updates to make this costume ready to compete in a cosplay contest that happens at my local convention at the end of April. So we're working on a few things. Namely, there's two main components that before this video were not completed and therefore literally made this cosplay unwearable. I don't need a pointing stick, this is a seam ripper. Two things. One, magnets to attach the sandworm to the jacket. And number two is the wig. The wig is the biggest thing that I will show you in this video. But let's start with some of the smaller things first. So first and foremost, I had someone comment, and I actually think it's a great comment, asking to see kind of some of the before and after of some of these changes. I think that's specifically referring to smaller things like the bias tape. So I made sure to capture that for when I was working on the jacket. One of the big things on the jacket was the shoulder seams were completely unfinished. They just raw edges everywhere, super tall, really just frayed. And there's a reason I'd left them like that for so long. It was because I was afraid of when putting in the magnets to attach it to the sandworm, that for some reason I was gonna need to open a shoulder seam. And I was actually right. I did need to open a shoulder seam to put a magnet down in the wrist. So I'm very happy I waited. But now all of the shoulder seams have been covered in bias tape, and that does include the zipper seams on either side of the left shoulder where the zipper access is for the arm. I should maybe pause. If you've never seen this project and have literally no idea what I'm talking about, I've been putting together a whole playlist on everything I've done to put this cosplay together. So go check out that video, those videos, all of them, and you'll see how this thing gets made from start to finish. So other small things to the jacket is there are now hook and eyes in the top of this shoulder that attach to a piece that is not here right now, but the fake arm. So in order to create the illusion, I had the fake arm. But when I noticed, especially when I was taking pictures with it, is that the fake arm just kept sliding down the sleeve because it's lined with satin. Satin is slippery. So I'm fixing this by, I've put two hook and eyes in. The hooks are on the fake arm, so those hook up and will attach to the eyes that are on the jacket. That way, if I wear it as the normal jacket without the fake sleeve, there's no hooks on the shoulder of the jacket that I have to like feel or be bothered by. The hooks are on the fake sleeve part and they just attach to the jacket, so the eyes are nice and flat. That was really easy. I just kind of top stitched those down. The other change that was made to the fake arm is there is now a very small magnet in the sleeve. And this magnet will connect to one that I'm going to put in the pocket of the jacket. So that way the arm stays at the right angle that I want it to before, again, the arm kind of goes all the way into the pocket. So if the arm is held up at the shoulder, the fake arm insert is held up, and then the sleeve is held out by the magnet, everything should work out and the arm should stay exactly where I need it to. So that brings me to, how did I get the magnets in this thing in the first place? So this magnet that I've lost is sewn into the seam allowance from the inside of this jacket. So this magnet on the sleeve is actually not visible from the inside or outside of the jacket. And that's when I opened a shoulder seam, got it down in there, and sewed it on. All of these other magnets are visible from the lining of the jacket. I knew that. That's kind of why I lined this jacket. So that way from the outside, you don't see anything. You see, other than the fact that the jacket is sticking to itself, because magnets, you don't see anything. But from the inside, you do see all kind of the seam lines and the stitches where the magnets are. I'm debating how annoying I want to be about how these are sewn in. Because they're loosely sewn in right now, I am strongly considering going back through and trying to make even finer, smaller stitches now that they're at least secured exactly where I need them to be, and then I can take out the larger stitches. I'm not sure how much I care right now. But in order to do that, I did have to open up the center back seam of the lining, and that's what I've been using as my access into the jacket. And so I will hand stitch that closed when I'm done. And that's one of the biggest things is, did these magnets work? And the answer is yes, these magnets 100% work. They hold the sandworm up. I have a little bit of trouble getting it on myself. I do still require help to kind of align the magnets because the jacket shifts as soon as I go to like try to align any of the magnets along, but they 100% hold the sandworm up. And so all of the magnets in the sandworm have been replaced with the stronger magnets, and I'm alternating them 10 pound, 6 pound, 10 pound, 6 pound. I only have 4 of the big ones, so I put most of those up around the shoulder, and so I used all of those up, but I think it'll be okay. The bottom of the sandworm will be held on by the 6 pound ones, and since they're so frequent, I'd say, you know, every 12 inches or so, 8 to 12, it kind of depends on how it wraps. It should be perfectly fine, but the magnets hold it up, and you cannot understand how freaking happy that makes me that the new magnets work and that the sandworm actually stays, and it looks so freaking good. So the next thing that I've been really working on, I haven't actually worked on any more of the moss. There's still a lot more of moss that needs to get worked on. The next thing that I've worked on is the wig. And as I said at the beginning of this video, I've never styled a wig before. So this was gonna be interesting. I've never dyed a wig before. I've never styled a wig before. I have very dark brown hair. I wanted to dye my hair all the time as a kid, but that would have required bleaching it. So I didn't have the fun experience of trying to dye hair with things like Kool-Aid or box dye or any of that. I've had colored hair exactly once and I love it and I'd love to do it again. But basically I don't have experience with doing like anything with my hair other than braiding it. So I, in my infinite wisdom, I know how you're supposed to dye a wig. I'd like to say first and foremost, I know how you're supposed to do it, and you'll see proof of that. However, I wanted to try something different. Mostly because the kind of wig I wanted was seemingly hard to find. I knew you could dye a wig. I didn't know if you could bleach a wig in the way that I really wanted to, in the way that controlled. So basically, I had 2 options when it came to picking a wig. Pick a white wig and dye the roots green. Pick a green wig, dye the tips white. Bleach the tips white. This one seemed easier because I know how to dye a wig. I could have looked into this. I could have looked into bleaching, and I kind of ended up doing that in the end. But I probably, if you know anything about wigs or wig styling or hairdresser or hairstylist, let me issue a formal apology for the atrocities that you will see committed to this wig. It turned out fine. I think we got there in the end. I'm just not patient, and you can really see that in this process. So let me take you to me on a Friday night at like 8 p.m. when I decided to start this process, because that makes some sense. It doesn't make any sense. And let me walk you through the process of this wig and how I dyed it, and then we'll come back and talk about what's happening next. Hello, welcome to my guest bathroom. I'm sure this is a weird angle. It's weird for me too. I'm not entirely sure where to look. But we are working on dyeing the wig. I have secured the wig head to the wig itself with bobby pins through some of the basically little weft joins. You should use straight hairpins, which are basically just you and the stick with no bobbles on them. I used pliers to pry the bobbles off the end of these just so they would actually go through better. Worked decently well. It's definitely not ideal. That means I'm not securing the lace in any way because I don't want to damage the front of the wig. So all the secure points are from like here back. So what we're doing, I have 2 kinds of dye. This is not hair dye. This is fabric dye. One is their general all-purpose. This one is synthetic. We're going to start with this one because I think it's closer to the color I want. So what I'm doing is a mad scientist project, because typically you're supposed to heat a pot up of water and dunk whatever you want to dye into it. We're not doing that because I don't want to dye the entire wig. I just want to dye the roots, which is a problem because obviously This is a blonde wig. So the ends I think are the color I need. And obviously it's not styled or teased or anything yet. And the thing is, I don't need a lot of color. I just need the roots to have something, to be green in any way. So if all this does is kind of leave the hint that like I dragged it through the moss, then that's fine. That's kind of exactly what I want. So we're gonna start with this. And my plan is to mix this with warm water and conditioner to make a semi-paste-like thing, and use this very scientifically and precisely to apply it to the hair. Have I ever done this before? No, I've never styled a wig before. Because when I did Faye Valentine, that was just a straight wig that I had to wear. Philippa Georgiou, I just straightened my hair. So I've never had to do a wig before. So we'll see how this goes. But you're coming on the journey with me. You, hello, over there. So let's do it.
So as I said, I started with the just normal RIT dye, and I poured some of it into a bowl with an amount of conditioner and mixed. I didn't really end up using too much water because the dye already made it very liquidy. I don't think this was a terrible approach to use something as an agent to kind of thicken it. However, I did end up using a lot of conditioner, and I probably could have just been very careful with the dye application in the first place, as you'll kind of see much later. It ended up looking like liquid poop. I don't have a better way to say that. This final mixture was bizarre to behold, but I used gloves on the hand that was basically going to be manipulating the wig. I was just holding the brush with my bare hand and got this all over my counters and my sink. It's fine. It ended up wiping off really easily. It wasn't a problem. Once I was done with this entire wig head, I really only let it sit for about an hour. Again, I started this pretty late at night. Wasn't my brightest moment, especially because I was really anxious. I don't know why. I was so anxious it was going to over dye, and I think I got scared because of how dark the liquid dye is. It does not matter how many warnings the package says about it not looking like the final product color. My brain still panicked, and so that's why I ended up washing this out really early. So I don't know if this method could have actually been met with some success, because I didn't really give it a chance. But anyways, I spent a good 20 minutes, if not a little bit more, applying it to the wig, only to rinse it out about an hour and a half later.
So here's the rundown. This isn't fully rinsed out yet, but that's okay. So this is what the inside of the wig cap looks like, and it's kind of interesting. It's very green, as would be expected. But the biggest culprit for clearly the hair not dyeing is the front of the head. This is still, you can tell, going to be the blonde. The green mostly stuck to the wefts of the inside. So what I'm going to do, so I had two kinds of dye. This is the one I just used, which is their all-purpose. This is their synthetic. My concern with this is just that it's going to be a lot stronger. It's also going to be a lot darker. So my next plan is to leave it for a significantly longer period of time. This only sat for about an hour because it is at night and I am concerned over leaving it for a long amount of time. So I'm going to let this dry as much as it can overnight. And then I am going to do this again tomorrow, and we will see how long I can leave it and what kind of green I get. Because I'm interested to see what the effect of having the roots dyed green like that looks like. Plus, I've learned a lot about how to apply this in the first place. I don't think my method is bad. Plus, the hair smells really good now. So his scalp is very green. I just need the hairs themselves to go green. So we'll see. I'm realizing I could potentially reverse dip dye this by using, the problem is like the level of submersion. But since I mostly want the roots, you know, what if I did the dye the normal way and basically just dip dyed it in, like trying to get the ends of just the wig cap? That feels like it's going to be a little sketchy, and the thing is I really need the ends. I want the ends to stay as blonde and white as possible, and if this is hard to dye this thing, I really don't want to deal with trying to bleach it. So that's what we're going to do. Again, it took fabric dye, surprisingly, not surprisingly, the fabric really well. So I think that's a good sign. So yeah, we're gonna let her dry, see how terrible or not this looks in the morning. and then get a little bit more aggressive with the dye. I might also brainstorm some other solutions for actually putting it on the hair, as far as when you do it for synthetic dye, you know, like maybe incorporating some dish soap or completely changing the structure of the mixture altogether and making it more heavily dye concentrated. My concern is I need it to be slightly more solidified because I don't want it running down the lengths of the hair, because again, I'm trying to keep the ends of the hair nice and blonde. So we have a damp wig that did not successfully dye, but you know what? Trial and error unfortunately involves error. So we'll come back to her tomorrow. So I'm gonna do my best to get this on camera. But I thought this was basically a complete failure of dyeing the actual hairs, but it wasn't. If we go down to the base of the wig where it sat the longest and look at these sections, you can see that just barely the dye started to get into the hairs. Just at the ends. So what definitely happened is down towards the end, I was a lot thicker with my application. And so we are going to keep that going for the rest of it. I'm thinking of dyeing it while it's dry this time instead of wetting it like I did before. I don't know how that's going to change it. I'm also going to use a little bit of flour. I was looking for cornstarch. I can't seem to find it in my kitchen. To try to help thicken it a little bit, just to not use nearly as much conditioner. I don't know. I'm worried that I diluted the dye too much. But we are going to mix these two together and try again. But this little section of dye in the hairs, this little section of dye, it's really hard to see, but it's just ever so slightly on the hair, is giving me hope that this might actually work. So we're gonna try again, and I'm gonna abandon this thing for at least 2 or 3 hours. So let's rock. So it kind of looks like I've a Vulcan crime scene, but what I've done, this has been sitting for 11 hours. And basically what I've done is I've just been layering dye on top of the wig cap from this direction. The wig started wet, and so my theory was if I apply just the dye to the top, it'll soak down into the strands. If this doesn't work, I'm going to follow the package directions and just try to dye this entire thing green. And then we will just go from there. It's not a bad thing if the wig is entirely green. It doesn't need to be, I don't want it to be, but it'll be okay. So, that was like the worst sound. Oh my god, I hope I can cut that out. But, this wig has been sitting for a while, and basically, I'm now going to rinse it out, and we're going to see if any of this dye took, and if it didn't, I'm going to be really upset. And if it did, then we're going to have a very Beetlejuicy wig. So we'll see what happens.
I'm leaving this washing clip in just so you can see very clearly that this method did not work at all.
So it is time for me to admit defeat, and I'm going to do this the normal way. So I've got a pot of water. We are going to get this up to, I think it's about 200 degrees according to the dye instructions. I'm going to be using mostly this color with a little bit of this one in to make it a little bit darker. I just think this is a more accurate Beetlejuice color. And I'm going to be dipping the lace part, basically the wig cap part first, because I'm trying to dip dye it in reverse. I don't want the ends dyed. I just want the roots, or as much of the roots as possible. If more of the hair ends up dyed, that's fine, but I'm mostly targeting the roots, so we are going to see what happens. For additional reference, this is the state of the wig. Again, the roots, so the inside is very dyed, but this thing is still blonde. So the experiments were fun. But, yeah, maybe, maybe instructions exist for a reason. It's fine. Okay, so it looks a lot darker on video, and it's super spotty, which is arguably okay. It literally only sat in the dye bath for a minute, maybe. I kind of very quickly gave up on doing the root thing that I was going to do, so instead I dunked it in and let it spin and sit for a few minutes, and then took it to the sink and washed it, and started scrubbing sections really aggressively with dish soap. And so a lot of basically just trying to make the ends lighter. It didn't work on all of them, but it worked for the most part across the board. So I'm gonna let this thing dry, and then we're gonna style it, probably. He's supposed to look like a balding undead guy, so, I mean,
you know, it looks like you rolled out of a grave. Again, it looks a lot brighter in person. It's coming across really interestingly on camera. So we will see what this looks like when it's dried. But yeah, this wig is probably mad at me.
So she's dry. And what we have here is a very interesting pale color. I did succeed for the most part in getting a lot of the darker to be at the roots. However, the ends are very, very green still. And so the reason I'm wearing a glove is I'm about to try to bleach the ends. I've also started kind of teasing and backcombing a little bit just to kind of get the hair to stand up. And by that, I literally am just taking it kind of in the sections and doing that until they kind of stand up a little bit. I'm anticipating some issues in styling this wig. I'm currently doing it in the sink, so it's not super stable, but mostly just due to the length of the hair. I was kind of worried that it wasn't going to work too well, but I think it's working kind of nicely. And I think since I don't really want to deal with dyeing it again, I think this is just the greenness is what I want. I just need to now get the rest of it to be, woo, lovely noises, closer to what I want. I realize doing this part in the sink is not ideal, but you know what? It's kind of working. It's Beetlejuice. He's gonna look disheveled. He's gonna look like a mess. So I'm not too worried. I'm just trying to improve on what I have. So I've got a brush. I'm gonna be following basically a similar to how I've done like bleach paint shirts and stuff in the past. So we're gonna do that. This is a shorter wig, I think, than would be ideal for Beetlejuice, but it's the only one that kind of had the hairline sort of that I was looking for. So that's kind of why we went with it. I. So yeah, we've already got some fuzz. This part, so this is where I did a lot of the, like, I washed it out as much as I could. So these are good and nice and light. The stuff in the front, the lighting also plays a trick on this hair. So I'm having a very hard time telling the true color of it sometimes. So that's been really interesting. But yeah, I have a glove for this hand as well. I'm not going to be doing this gloveless. And we are going to attempt to bleach some ends.
If you can't tell, lighting seems to affect the color of this wig greatly. On camera, it looks like the color I think I wanted. In person, it's a little bit brighter, but I still think it worked just fine. So the small glass jar that you can see just has bleach in it. I was dipping a brush into the bleach and just kind of painting the ends and then rubbing it in with my fingers. That is all I did, focusing on the ends of hair that looked the absolute darkest, because I do know, and this is what happened, that as I teased hair and the ends got less dense, so there was less hair at the ends, that it would inherently look lighter because there is less of the green surrounding it. And this effect did actually work, I think, in the end. So basically just trying to brighten up the ends that looked a little too dark for what I wanted.
It's really interesting that the color on camera appears to be coming across a lot grayer than it is in person. It's a good bright green in person, and I think that's fine. When I say bright, I mean, I guess it's a very pale kind of minty green, but I'm actually pretty happy with the color. We did achieve, to a decent extent, a little bit of an ombre of the darker to light, and again, I didn't need this thing to be crazy green. I just needed it to be more green than blonde. So what we're doing now, and I've already done a good bit of it, and I kind of keep brushing it out. So one of the things is, you can see here, I'm sorry for all the styrofoam noise. Here's a good example of the back of the wig that I haven't done yet. And you can see the weft lines like really, really clearly, versus an area I've spent a lot of time back combing. It's a lot harder to actually see down in there. So the process for this, if you've, the way that I've been back combing, at least, especially because of how short this hair is I'm taking a section, so we'll take a section here, and holding it in my knuckles, just so I can get a decent grip on it, and then using the short side of the comb, just kind of consistently trying to fluff and back comb that up. It's not working. I mean, it is working. It's just taking a little bit of time. The other thing is I don't have hairspray, so that is not the best right now, but this is kind of a first pass. I'm just trying to create some amount of texture so that this wig looks better than it currently does. The other plan is basically anywhere you can still see the weft lines when I'm done with it, I'm gonna glue some moss because we still need this thing to look gross. So one of the next things I'm gonna do, once I get rid of his floofy boy band cut, because something that is a problem with this wig is the hairline. This hairline is very, Beetlejuice doesn't have quite a widow's peak, and more of especially, he doesn't have this intense and like full of a hairline. So I'm going to figure out how to remove some hair from the hairline so that it looks a little bit more like a balding man, and then apply some moss and maybe sew some details through the lace and into the hairline to kind of create a faux, I still want the hairline of the wig to basically be here, but I want it so that I can sit this at the very top of my hairline so that when it goes back there, it looks like it's like a further man's receding hairline. So I need some hairspray so that I can get these things, and it is sitting very far forward on the mannequin head right now. That's just so I can get to the back of the neck a little bit easier because it's just very long in the back. It sits, you know, typically higher, but I need some hairspray so that I can get all of the ends to stick up and out as they need to. They still currently flop over a little bit because it is supposed to look like a very frazzled, think Einsteinian kind of look. And then we're gonna thin up the hairline, but for as much stress as this process is called, I think we're doing okay. Some things, I do think most of my issues in the dyeing attempts, to some extent, came from not being patient or willing to let it dry fully in between attempts. That is on me. I think I could have gotten some pretty decent, changed my plan probably more correctly is a bad way to say that, but just adjusted better if I'd actually like fully let it dry and see what it was doing. So I think like this section of the hair, assuming it comes across on camera, we get the very nice green to a little bit more of the ashy blonde up at the top. So yeah, currently he looks like he belongs in a boy band, a very anime dramatic emo boy band. But we're gonna use some hairspray and probably some paint around the very visible front roots as well, and some moss, and get him looking nasty. So this is the wig as she sits. He sits, I guess, technically. This has been styled and teased and hairsprayed, which is the most important thing. But it's still not done. One, I still think it needs a little bit more hairspray. Not all of the pieces are standing up the way I want. We still have a little bit of a F-boy swoop going on. My boyfriend just said it's okay, it's young Beetlejuice, and I was like, I don't think Beetlejuice has ever been young. Have you looked at him? But what I'm gonna do, I did try to go through and thin out the widow's peak a little bit from the underneath, and I actually used my smallest seam ripper to get in there because it is a lace front wig, which means those hairs are tied on, so you can basically undo the knots from the back. So I tried, and I did thin it out a little bit, and then I decided that was taking way too long and that I didn't really have a good idea of when to stop. Like that didn't, sewing, you finish your raw edges, I know when to stop. When it fits right, that's when you stop. I don't know when to stop on this. That I think that's what I'm finding is my biggest issue with this wig, is I don't know when to say it's good enough or good at all, at least when it comes to the styling. I am at least very happy with the styling. What I've been trying to do is just not be able to see the weft lines throughout the wig. There's a couple of spots where I can see it, which I know doesn't make sense because he's balding, but it's a wig and I'm trying to make it look good. So anyways, Beetlejuice has a big head of hair. The thing is, I think you'll still be able to tell who this is. I actually am really, really happy with the way the dye job came out. It's a little patchy, but again, think of the character. I think it makes sense. I really, really do. So what's coming next is our friend is making an appearance, and on the hairline of this wig, I want to apply, I talked about in the last video, maybe, that I was considering trying to use this lace front to create moss pieces kind of for my face. Well, in a similar, not similar vein, I'm gonna basically use the lace front here to create moss textures that come down onto the forehead. The reason for this is I don't have the biggest forehead. Like my hairline is, I don't know, normal. Not Beetlejuice's hairline is really what I'm trying to say. My hairline is here. Beetlejuice's hairline is like here. And clearly I don't have that, and I really don't want to wear a bald cap. So what we're gonna try to do is I want to fill in the gaps of this widow peak hairstyle with moss and greenery so that I can put the widow's peak tip at my hairline instead of have to put the scoop parts of the widow's peak at my hairline, which would make the widow's peak come here. So I should be able to shift my hairline a good bit back. That's the hope. That's how I think this is gonna work. We'll see. I keep finding myself teasing and backcombing and messing with this wig, and I genuinely don't think it'll stop until the day of the con when I actually wear this thing. The nice thing is it actually really keeps its shape now. The wig doesn't really flatten as much as it did before. It stays quite in shape, and you can see the result of the wig head after all of that. But I think for never having styled or dyed a wig before, I'm pretty happy with the result. So it still needs a few touches to make it gross and grungy like Beetlejuice truly is. But we are ever slowly stepping closer to truly finishing this thing and getting all the final touches done. I'm slowly just kind of working on everything all at once because it's easier to jump from thing to thing to thing, and then eventually I get to check something off on my little checklist. I have a small spreadsheet where I plan out all my videos anyways, and then off to the side, if it's something that's like a larger project, I have like all the things that need to be done for that project. And so I have everything for Beetlejuice in there. So we're slowly working towards it. Not quite all of the magnets are in yet. Not quite all of the moss is in yet. But we are so close. I'm so excited. I'm not sure. My next video may be about my Armorer cosplay instead of Beetlejuice, because I do have a few updates I want to make to her before the convention. I think I talked about that in my last one. I don't know. I will say time's gotten away from me a little bit these past 2 weeks, so things I wanted to get done just did not get done. But hey, life happens. That's why we call it the Chaos Corner, or I call it the Chaos Corner, because it's chaotic and it's mine, and I am in a corner. There's a corner right there. But anyways, this is a rambly video. I'm so happy with the way this thing is coming together, especially now that I finally have 2 of the biggest pieces to make this thing actually look good. And we are trucking right along. So if you see more things you think I need to work on, let me know in the comments down below. Do you think, genuinely, do you think I should worry about making the edges of these magnets sewn with smaller stitches, or do you think they're fine as they are? That's a question I actually would genuinely like answered. Please let me know in the comments down below. I love reading and responding to comments. Makes me happy. So thank you so much for being here with my little rambly expositionary status update on this costume. We are working, and eventually it will be completed. I am very proud of my weird little creation. I keep finding it odd that every time I start saying that something looks good in relation to these pieces, that what I really mean is it looks dirty and gross and disgusting, because that's just who the character is. That's what I'm trying to get to. So anyways, if you like my content and all of this nonsense, let the algorithm know that you want to see more by, hitting the subscribe button, like button, commenting, sticking around to see another one. If you've missed any of the previous videos, I'll put them again. I'll link the playlist. But thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.